And welcome to another late edition of the Stars, Stripes, and Anfield Nights stream. Liverpool Transfer Room, the UK brethren from the stream, I guess, went to bed early or never got home because they did not set up the stream for their younger American cousins. And as I was saying to Rigo and CT, it feels like the parents didn't show up to make dinner and the kids were scrambling to get food on the table. So this is what we got for you tonight. Hope you all enjoy it. And we finally got some football, some club football going on that is getting us geared up toward up the main season. Premier League starting soon. But tonight I have Rigo and CT with me. It's good to have you both. Rigo, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great, doing great. Super excited and anxious. I'm actually going to go see Liverpool play against Arsenal tomorrow in Philadelphia. It's about a 2 hours drive, a little over 2 hours for me over here in Strasbourg, Pennsylvania. So super excited, take the family. So yeah, super pumped, especially after the action against Real Betis, which was very positive, at least in my opinion. So doing super well. How are you doing, Drew? How are you doing, CT?
I'm doing good, Rigo. Appreciate it. Definitely stoked that you get to see Liverpool Arsenal. That's definitely one of my favorite fixtures. Even with the preseason, definitely feels like there's going to be a little spice there. No love lost between the two. So I'm doing good. I'm going to try to see if I can get to that South Carolina game against United. Knock on wood, I have a good record whenever I've seen Liverpool here in the States or over in the UK. They've never lost, so hopefully a win or at least a draw. But preseason, just to getting excited for the season, as you said, Real Betis already has me antsy for the start. But CT, the game's at 4:30 my time, 7:30 East Coast PM. What's it like for you? Are you able to catch these preseason games? Or are you living off scraps of highlights?
It's actually pretty good for me. Can't complain. 9:30 in the morning, the Betis game, so watched it live and enjoyed it. And great to be with you, Drew, Rigo, and Dan is going to join us, I think, in a minute. And a shout out to all our viewers joining us on X, YouTube, and worldwide. Excited that there's actually football now that we can talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about some transfer news as well.
Definitely. We'll see about the transfer news. One thing at a time, it feels like, especially Liverpool being was the only club in the top five leagues not to make a major signing yet. Um, we'll see. Fingers crossed. But uh,
Patience is a virtue, and we're very virtuous as a fan base, aren't we?
100% carts and horses, right?
But officially, we're about to break that with the signing of 15-year-old Rio.
Does that count though? It's an academy signing. I don't think that officially counts, right?
Now, if he's like the
True.
next Raheem Sterling, right? We'll look back on it fondly, but yeah,
But
I don't know. My bet was like signing somebody like 16-year-old from the championship as our first signing, so just a little off. But we'll start with the preview for tomorrow's match. As I was scrambling to get everything set up, I pulled up some possible lineups, and I guess the consensus I saw was a possible starting lineup where we might see, the majority of Liverpool's more fit players, some more first team players, and as we're getting closer to the season, I feel like it's important getting the minutes in, and maybe the guys we're seeing playing most at this stage might be the ones who get the nod for first game of the season. But Liverpool possible starting lineup I saw was Kelleher, Bradley, Kwanzaa, Vandenberg, Simicas, Endo, Morton, Salah, Szoboszlai, Elliott, and Jota. So a little different. I think Jones is out. Morton's in from the Real Betis game. But how are you guys feeling about what you've seen so far with Real Betis and the potential starting lineup for tomorrow? CT, we'll start with you.
Yeah, excited for another game, obviously, but stronger competition. But second game of slot ball. I was excited, but I don't know if we're going to play the same formation. But looks like Jota, if Jota's there, then we might be playing with a striker. It was very interesting to be playing without a striker. That caught me by surprise in terms of not setting up with that. But yeah, pretty strong lineup. If you said, like you said, look forward to seeing another game of Sepp. My first look at him really, and he impressed me. Trey Ione was a big standout, so we'll see how many minutes he can get. But yeah, I'm just more looking at the setup and possession-based patience. This talk that he's been preaching that in the training as well. So we're playing a different way, and it's kind of exciting for me. But I really just want to see more guys.
100% CT. I feel like that for me was the same thing. It felt more a little structured, a little less chaotic. But even for a preseason game, it seems like Slot's getting his ideas across. But joining us now is Dan. Dan, how you doing, man? And what are you looking forward to for tomorrow?
I'm doing good, Drew. Did we tell everyone how we just are running roughshod? We've gone rogue. The former colonies and commonwealths have risen up to enact their own Independence Day. All the we got the Star Stripes and Star Stripes. I guess I don't know what else to do. Star Stripes and other stripes, and then a wallaby. So we have everyone here, like just protesting the English tyranny that we live under over here at the LFC Transfer Room. No, I'm all jokes aside, in my fun intro, trying to run back. Yeah, no, I mean, it's very interesting. I think that the first game is kind of a weird one to analyze because it's just, you're not going to see probably that same exact 4-2-2-2 setup throughout the whole year. I think there'll be some basic principles we'll see. Like I've mentioned in the chat, the double pivot, which I know Rigo saw it when I texted earlier today that, that I can see Gravenberch being a deep double pivot playmaker, which is what he did with Ajax. I think we're going to see a lot of McAllister there, Jones, not just Trey Nioni, but also like Tyler Morton. I think we're going to see a lot more of random double pivots than we expected. I was really excited to see Sepp. I think he's shown like he is absolutely a quality player. I think in comparison to say to some of the other center backs we've seen, like obviously I know Calafiori was just announced by Arsenal a couple days ago. Lenny Euro at United, who is a talented player, but obviously is still developing. I think Sepp has shown himself to be in the class of all of the center backs that we've been linked to so far. He also has like over 100, I think, professional caps, or like 98 or something. So he has had a lot of first team football, both in the Bundesliga and in the championship. So seeing him just be evolved, like his on the ball presence, he wins everything. He's not slow. He's for some Molly lot, and everything else. I think he's been the most impressive. I think I know you guys probably talked about this, but Jones's injury doesn't look that bad, so he'll probably be back in that double pivot soon, which I think is important because I think Jones is our most important midfielder this season. I know I kind of said the same thing last year, but as we've seen from Jones, he's the most consistent. So if he can continue that development and go like a 10 or 11 games without injury, I think we'll deal with a lot of the worries that all of us have had a lot easier. The one worry person is Wataru Endo. I don't know if we've hit on that yet. CT, Rigo, Drew, have you guys talked about Wataru yet? Go ahead, Rigo. I didn't hear you.
We just started, Dan. We just started. So
we just started. Listen, I'm just running through my head everything that we can hit on. I think Wataru's
all the topics at once.
But. Yeah, no, we can't. We'll be here for hours. Like it's a late night jazz show. I will get my saxophone and we can play out some tunes. I think Wataru's the one player that I think looks like the odd duck out, so to speak. I think that he is probably the most Klopp signing of all the signings we recently made. I think everyone's a little adaptable and they can play in different systems, obviously coming from the like playing a similar counter press style. But I think Endo might be the odd one out. I actually think it's funny that not only did Pierce release what they had said like a couple weeks ago from Marseille, but that Wataru Endo has said himself that he looks forward to a new six coming in. So I wonder if Wataru is kind of like, I don't really fit this, I'm okay with looking for game time everywhere else, which I think is just JMU's hitting with the Steely Dan reference. I wonder if he will be the odd one out, but there are so many players I'm excited to see. Gravenberch is the one I'm excited to see if he plays against Arsenal. I don't know if he is. does anybody know when did they get back to training? Was it just Monday? Today.
Yeah.
So I don't think he'll be in contention for Arsenal, but the sooner we see Gravenberch, Jota, like a just any striker, and Darwin, of course, and just more of the first team there, the happy I think I'll be. I will say though, Bajcetic and Nioni do look like the real deal, like the next two midfielders. And even Morton, I was pleasantly surprised how good he was.
Wow, Nioni,
Rigo.
yeah. Wow, yeah. So my thoughts on the Betis match were just the build-up play was just I thought was awesome. They stuck to it, especially for the first 60 minutes, and you can definitely see that we're not looking at least perhaps it's just a matter of the talent on hand, but from what you can see for practices, that they want to build up through the middle, a lot of 1-2 touch passing, and I think it's great. I think it's really going to portend to us keeping a lot more clean sheets and us actually keeping our players fit, just because they're not going to be running up and down the field so much, constantly trying to beat out our counterattack or complete our own counterattack and score a goal. And it definitely is going to help us out a lot better with tougher competition. We'll sit back in a low block. So, yeah, very exciting stuff. I think the standouts definitely were Sepp Vandenberg. I thought he was speedy, strong, won basically all of his aerial duels. I think, being honest, I think he definitely challenged 4 starter minutes by pushing these guys, and that's not a bad thing. Will he be content with that? It doesn't seem like such, just because of his last couple of loan moves. He's played basically full seasons for his teams, except for his third year. But I think he's very talented, and if we were looking to purchase someone of his potential, we'd be paying 30-40 just because we'd be interested in them. As far as the midfield situation, as you mentioned, Dan, Endo being the odd man out, I think potentially out of the starting lineup, which would not be such a bad thing. I really would like Endo coming in and close out matches, or just being the veteran presence out there against lower level teams. I think he definitely adds something to the mix. If we were to get an offer, again, if we bring in players, obviously, for him in the range that we paid for him, I wouldn't be opposed to, obviously moving him on if he's not going to play that much. But Trainioni just looked amazing when he did come in. Curtis Jones, I can see why he was excited in his interview as far as what the season's going to play out for him. Midfield definitely is going to have the ball a lot more. We're going to need a lot more technicians in that midfield. And just one kind of closing thought before I end my rant here. I know Trainioni came in and it looked absolutely amazing. I don't think he's going to be part of the first team setup. I think he's still has a lot more physical development to kind of go through. Very exciting talent. I'm not sure if he's even available for a loan, if they want to loan him out to the championship yet. But the one guy that kind of is similar to the way Nioni came in and was able to drive, take the ball, and make those line penetrating passes. I really think Gravenberch kind of fits that bill, just because of the talent that he has. He's bigger than Trey, obviously older, and yeah, I think it's kind of very positive for the midfield talent that we have.
Well, there's certainly a lot of players that have impressed so far, even just one game into the preseason. I totally agree with what you said, Rigo. And I'm curious to see, like, out of these players, if anyone's going to step up and potentially grab a starting spot with the first game of the season just around the corner. Because I don't know if the players who haven't even returned yet to training or to join over at the United States tour, if Slot's going to show some preference to some guys he's seen firsthand. CT, how do you feel about the importance of these games, the players who are playing, in terms of their potential possibilities of starting on game day 1?
Yeah, it's huge, obviously. But a lot of the guys that have been back for a minute have been in training and, been probably had a head start on a lot of the guys that are just joining and soon to join. But no doubt Slot has, certainly put his imprint already I mean, for one game, I've been encouraged with how well those guys adapted. To no striker, different style of play. It's encouraging, but of course, against Arsenal, Man United, it's going to be really. I think we're going to see a lot more reaction, strong reactions, maybe overreactions. If you have a bad,
Oh shit! Oh, sorry.
like, yeah, a lot of people have talked about, you're behind the eight ball. You might be on the outer, but then on the flip side, you might be, like you said, leading the clubhouse into getting a starting spot. Obviously, I'm looking at guys that potential loans, and if they shine, like a Fabio, Sepp, then it's looking like they might stay. Some might think otherwise. I'll be curious to get your guys' thoughts. That's the first thing I'm looking at. Like, are these guys going to stay with us this season, or are they going to impress and force a loan move? And then obviously, yeah, the other guys that we know are going to stay, like Curtis and and other guys that like Bradley. Does Trent really start at right back, and Bradley's not a starter? I'm going to be really looking at all of that, but. Yeah, I think great competition. Two teams coming up that we're going to be going head to head against all season. Some of them new signings. Would have liked to see Yoro out there. As much as it is a blow for United, I want those teams at full strength so that we can knock them off. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I always lean on the line of whoever's in form should be playing. Like, I think that, like, back when Connor Bradley was having a stint in the squad, I think there was the game of Chelsea that we were previewing, and the debate was, do you throw Trent right in or do you keep Connor Bradley? And my choice was keep Connor Bradley. So for me, I'm sure Slot has eyes or some sort of communication with the people who are training back at Anfield, back in Liverpool, and then he'll be seeing the fitness levels of the people in camp that he has in the States. So I think he'll pick who he believes is best, best ready for the matches. But as you're saying, I'm curious about the ones of the players who are still on vacation, because at this moment, just for the small example, I'd put Connor Bradley still ahead of Trent just to start. But that's just where I'm sitting on the fence. Dan, how about you? Where do you see the starting lineup in terms of a reflection of these friendly matches and who's ready?
I think the starting lineup's going to be different for the first 3 games than afterwards. I think we're going to see something similar to the start of the 21-22 season, where, if you remember, we had a midfield of Oxley, Chamberlain, James Milner, Naby Keita, and James Milner was the 6. And we played Watford away or something, I think it was, or maybe it was someone at home, and we won. I think we're going to see a really weird mix of teams the first 1 to 2, the first 2 to 3 games. I think Connor Bradley's going to start right back, at least for the first game, and then we'll see if Trent comes in as a midfielder or he subs him on for Connor. But I think Trent, Slot's going to treat those first 3 games as extended preseason games for a lot of people. I could see an argument that Sepp and Kwanzaa start as the center back pair, with either Allison starting behind him or either Kelleher. I don't think Yaros will start, but I mean, we could be surprised. But goalkeepers usually don't need as much to get back up to speed. And I think, Rigo, when do the South American players come back? Is it next week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, the remaining folks should be back next week.
Okay, so I think Allison will start. I think Robinson will probably be the starting left back. And then for the midfield, I think you're going to see, if Jones is fit, I think it'll be Jones and Gravenberch will probably be the starting one with either. Well, I think it'll be. Are we
talking first game of season or
I'm talking about Ipswich. Well, I mean, I'm thinking of the Ipswich ahead. I think it'll be Jones and somebody else will start. I don't know if he'll throw Maka in.
Jones and Maka.
But is he going to start Maka like with barely 2.5 weeks of preseason? That's my worry. I mean, he'll probably be on the bench, is what I'm saying. And so
Copa America winning midfielder, World Cup winning midfielder.
I'm just saying in terms of like getting him ready for the season, because the first game against Ipswich is in the global, and like this in terms of the season is not the most important game of the season for every single player.
This is where you and I would differ, just because.
Let me finish, Rigo. So I think Jones will play. I think it'll be one of Soboslai or Harvey will be one of the 10s. I think you could see I think you see a situation where it's Harvey, with Soboslai being like the right winger and the striker being Mo, just in case anyone's out, and then the left wing will be a interesting proposition. I could probably even see Dom starting as a left winger. But I think we're going to see about that starting lineup. We're going to see about 5 or 6 players start the season against Ipswich. Is that a home game? I think it is. No, it's away. Yeah, so it's away.
No, it's away.
So I could see it interesting, like 6 players that you don't expect, and then 5 ones you do expect. Yeah, Gravenberch, Maka, and Elliott. I think it'll. The only reason I don't think he'll throw McAllister in is not because I don't think he could play and be great. It's just more the fact that if he's only getting about a week and a half of training and preseason before the season starts, do you really want to throw him against Ipswich first day of the season against a team that's going to have something to prove, or do you want the players that are going to be ready? So I think the Arsenal game will tell us a lot about what he thinks the starting lineup will be for Ipswich. At least 6 to 7 players, more or less. I don't think the goalkeeper will play a role or the left back, Simicast, but I could see the midfielders and potentially the forwards being the ones that we see at the start against Ipswich. Sorry, Rigo.
I don't need to say sorry. I don't think Andy's going to start just because unless he's fully healthy, because he's not even practicing yet.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
The other question there, Mohamed Salah, we didn't play with a striker the last match, and Mo was kept on the wing. I don't think he's going to be playing centrally at all, or else we would have seen that in the match against Betis. So I think he's nailed on the wing. And again, just my thoughts on there.
No, I know.
And as far as starting, Szoboszlai is definitely a starter. The question is, if Jones healthy, I think he's starting as well. I think the question is who pairs up with Jones in that midfield level. And that's where I think, McAllister is going to slot right in. Just because, again, he's one of our better players, obviously. It's the same thing. Would you keep Virgil out just because he's just joined 2 weeks ago, or are you going to go Kwanzaa?
Did he start that game against Watford 3 years ago, or was it somebody else? I remember Virgil not starting a lot of games that because that was the season he was coming back from his knee injury, and I think we saw a lot of Konates and Gomez at center back or Matip. We saw like a lot of weird combinations. I don't know, CT Drew, if my memory's failing me, or even Rigo, if you guys remember that starting lineup. Actually, I'm gonna pull it up real quick.
I just don't remember Virgil missing any matches when match fit.
Yeah, just on the Maka thing. I do think Maka will start, but you could always sub him off. He's probably not going to play 90 to Dan's point, but I think you got to start your best, fittest players in game one, get off to a good start. But yeah, you could always make subs. And I just put in the chat, I think Slot's going to trust these kids a lot more. If Nione puts in another blinder, does that change your thoughts on how ready he is? And,
I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes kids are just ready. I mean, Lamine Yamal won the Euro at just turned 17. And obviously years before that, Pedri, and there's plenty of examples elsewhere where talent just rises to the top and they just go right into the starting lineup, or at least play a big part of the team. It's hard because I know, for example, they're going to try and do what's best for these kids. Like Trey's not participating in the 2 of things; he's sitting out one. You know what I mean? Just to be able to not openly add some wear and tear to a young and developing body. The last thing you want is another type of bad tension situation where the guy's missing for a full year just because you kind of put too much on him too soon.
Yeah, and that's why I think, just quickly, one of the reasons we haven't seen urgent transfers is because he's wanted to evaluate the squad, and not just the veterans, but the young players, because Slot has come in with a reputation of not only open to giving them opportunities, but acknowledging when they're ready. And that might prevent a future signing if it's going to block the pathway of, like you said, Rigo, if a guy is ready, he's ready, or at least be on the bench a lot more games.
And you saw that at Feyenoord. Paul Lindo on the chat here. Love David Hanko. And Hanko, with Slop's help, obviously, is in rumored to be heading over to Atletico Madrid. So that's what a step up in just a couple of seasons of success under a guy like Slot. So
Yeah, just to talk about that lineup. So it was actually Norwich away. It was Allison. It was Virgil. He did start, but I think he had just come back and they threw him in. Costas, Matip, Trent. Midfield was Milner, Naby, Ox. Forwards were Sadio, Salah, and Jota. And Jota was subbed on the 61st. On the bench, it was Harvey, Ben Woodburn, Roberto Firmino, Takumi Minamino, Origi, Konate, Gomez, and Kelleher. So yeah, I think you're probably right about that. That probably Verge will start, but if it's going to be Verge, then one of Kwanzaa or Sepp will probably start that game too as well. I don't know. The thing about Inyoni, I know what you mean by the Lamine Yamal and even the Lenny Euro. It's just different when you're a midfielder though. And I mean, listen, like I think Trey's a class prospect. I think he'll be great. I think there's a chance that he stays with the first team and gets a lot of cup games, or even like comes and gets like a couple 10s and 15s and 20s throughout the season. And he could just be in the right place at the right moment. But I don't know. I'm always kind of worried relying on the 17, 18-year-olds to fill in the gaps during the season when we have so many other players that should have the quality to do that, or at least be available to do that. Granted, I know I'm pinning my DM hopes on Stefan Bajcetic, so maybe I'm talking with both sides of my neck there.
Yeah, for me on that one, it's like I always go back to when we had the COVID season, or when Klopp was playing, Fabinho and Henderson at center back instead of giving Nat Phillips and Reece Williams a chance. Maybe not the perfect example of who you'd want to start your first game of the season. It's Ipswich away, but I feel like the youth team has really rallied together under Klopp and is a perfect step up for Slot. I mean, one of my favorite, like out of all the trophies that we've won, probably obviously Premier League, Champions League, but the one we won last year, the League Cup with the kids, like the mental giants quote that often gets thrown around at Liverpool, I think just falls down through all the ranks. Like when you see Kwanzaa and Bradley stepping up, Tyler Morton, Bajcetic, like the youngsters that have come through in recent years have been absolutely insane. So definitely don't want to start like a full midfield of just youngsters, but I'd be okay with one starting in the midfield, for example. And Kwanzaa probably has the nod for me at center back if or alongside Verge.
I could see Tyler Morton starting, if I'm being honest, like 3 games. I could see him starting 2 to 3 games and either being sold or loaned out. I could, like, there's a couple players there that you could see in the first 2 to 3 matches that are immediately loaned out or sold not long after. Even someone like Luis Diaz, because if you were going back to 2017, a couple 7 years ago now, which is weird saying out loud, we were so young back then. We actually bought Oxlade-Chamberlain like I think a week after we beat Arsenal 4-0 at Anfield. So there is a situation. I think we're also might see, again, like I said, a couple youth players get the start, get the nod, and then immediately be like loaned out or even potentially sold before the end of the transfer window. So the Lex, it's gonna be one of those things where I don't think. I think any prediction we make about anything beyond September in terms of lineups will be next to impossible, just because of the fact that Liverpool haven't made any transfers yet, except for the youth player they bought from Chelsea, and we also haven't had any major sales. I think the only person that's blown out is Calvin Ramsey to Wigan. I think it's the only one that's happened so far.
That and Luke Chambers, I believe, already has a move agreed. He'll be
where's Beck?
Owen Beck was there. He played last night. He played against Betis. I could see Beck being kept around in the same way that Kwanzaa was, and just kind of used on occasion, because I think there's a possibility that either Robertson's not fit for the season, even though I did say he should probably start, though he might be injured, and they keep Beck around in the first team until either Robertson plays or Costas gets sold. And I really want to see Owen Beck make that step up, because I think he's the next big thing that we have at left back, at fullback, now that Connor Bradley has made the step up and has shown his quality in Liverpool, and has shown himself to be a very solid all-around right back.
He looked at one of our better players the other night.
Oh, Bradley, yeah.
Yeah, just he's going to be pushing for it to make starts and at least sub in on a higher frequency, I think.
So serious question: does Trent this season play more games at right back or midfield?
He's a right back.
Nope.
Right back.
I could see Trent getting 20 games in midfield this year. Like, of all of his games. Like, if you say he's going to play, let's say 32 games this year, I could see him playing 10 to 12 at right back and 20 in midfield.
I think go ahead.
Go ahead, CT.
Yeah, what I think and what I want to happen are different. What I think is going to happen is he'll be right back more. What I want to happen is him to be more midfield, because I think Connor Bradley is like Tarigo's point, like, you don't want to hold that back. For me personally, I think he's good enough to be a starting right back now. And then I also think Trent, whilst it might be a little bumpy in the beginning, his long-term future in his career should be midfield. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what happens with that.
Rigo, you're shaking your head. You haven't converted to the Trent as a midfielder cult yet, have you?
No. And just for the simple fact, let's say what we saw on against Betis is going to be the mode of play or what he wants from this midfield. You are limiting Trent's just supernatural ability to just ping passes and find teammates by putting him in congested midfield instead of in that role as a right back. In the right back, you can pick his spots. He has the entire field at his disposal. I think now, instead of crowding in so much, because remember, the reason why Trent was moved midfield wasn't because, hey, we wanted this guy to create so much. It's because we were leaking goals. And that was one way to kind of stem the counterattacks and stem a lot of the dangerous opportunities opposition had against us, was by moving in midfield, because the legs were gone in our midfield at that point. I think now, under Slot, much less of a demand when he does make his overlap moves, because we will be a lot more defensively sound. What you saw in the match against Betis was, if one of the backs was sprinting out, field, the other one would tuck in, and it'd be a lot more secure sitting back in a 3 as opposed to a 2-1 when we get in on the counter. I think if he stays at right back, his assist numbers are going to increase, and he can just keep on just launching that number further and further up, further cementing him as the best right back of all time. Why would you give that up to, be a midfielder where there's, so many that it's going to be hard to kind of stand out as far as one of the top ones ever. I think at right back he's nailed on.
So the reason why I'm framing that question is because, one, I think Trent would do very well as a midfielder in a slot system, mostly because it's a double pivot. It's a double pivot where both midfielders have to be good on the ball, receiving, turning, playing, possession, all that sort of stuff. And Trent can do that in tight spaces. He's not used to it, but it's not out of his realm of expertise. But also, he would not be. It's not like the Villa game it was not. Where the Villa game was like where McAllister lost the ball in the half turn. John Durant somehow gets a ball scored off his like left nut or something. I don't think it'll be that open and exposed. I think there's a very deliberate shape that you see with Slot in possession, where it's trying to create space but also keep it compact as possible, similar to what we did with Klopp. We've seen with Klopp post 2019. The one reason I don't think you keep Trent a right back is because I think there are games where you can play Trent in midfield. Like, there are games where you're going to have all the ball. You can give it to you can put Bradley, you can put Trent and someone else in midfield. You can build the shell around that team, and because no one in that team can do what Trent does. McAllister can't do what Trent does. I love Ryan Gravenberch, can't do what he does. Jones, Soboslai, Harvey tried to do what Trent did, and then played the bet this guy in on one side. There's no one in the team that can do what Trent does, and doing it from a more central position allows him to do both left and right side of the field rather from right to left. That's just my opinion, though. Like, if that's what are you gonna say, Drew? Okay, Rigo.
Perfectly fine. Where are we like super stacked as far as position wise?
Right now,
Rigo, I'm gonna jump in. Rigo, I back you on this one. I'll answer your question too. It's midfield. So for
center
me,
back actually,
what was
and left back.
Dire situation right there. But
Forwards.
no, trying to right back. I don't know. It makes more sense for me. I agree with what CT said though about Connor Bradley's development. That for me is going to be the most interesting battle. Is Connor Bradley versus Trent at right back. But For me, Rigo said it like the way we played against Real Betis. If you saw Connor Bradley's position in that game, he was the closest one to scoring the second goal for Liverpool at the end. Like Trent, for me's best position is bombing down the sideline, supporting the attack, whipping balls in. I don't think he'll be the best in double pivot, just from limited time we've seen with England, him having to learn the role, other midfield options. I think having him have that extra level to pierce through, like no one's just going to want an extra attacker from right back putting in like a ball. And I think the fact that what Trent's done for the last like 5-6 years just shows how effective he can be in supporting attack. And if that's what we're talking about, supporting attack from him, he's already shown that he's excelled farther than any other person in that position.
Before you say something, Dan, I know you're ready. Hold on. Before you say something. All right. So midfield double pivot, right? That's the ideal. Just say yes or no, right? That's what we're doing.
That's what I do.
Yes,
I have a counter proposal.
Oh. All right. So if you put Trent in the midfield double pivot, is he better at receiving the ball with his back to play and making quick moves than, let's say, an Endo is currently?
I would say they're about the same. Back to goal.
And from what you saw on the last match, was Endo's level of technique good enough to play that role as a starter for a slot?
There are two problems with that. I know what you're going to say. So the problem with Endo's back to goal isn't that it's bad. It's the fact that he's not quick on the turn and his passing range is not as good as Trent's. My counter to Trent is the fact that he doesn't have to play full back to goal. He can play on the half turn, which he is good at, just like Ryan's good at back to goal on the half turn, because Trent is good on the half turn. A lot of times where Trent is bad in a midfield position is that he picks the ball back to goal, turns, and there's no run. If you're going to play Trent in a midfield, you need the back to goal, receive, turn, play, like very quick ball either in behind or switch to the play. And that's what the England thing I think is a bad analysis. Not saying you, Drew, but because one, like he was the best midfielder that England had during most of that tournament. He was the most creative. He was the most action, and Gareth Southgate threw him to the wolves, so to speak. Like I don't respect Gareth Southgate enough to take his England midfield career with any sincerity. My compromise is, how about Trent as a 10? Because I could see him as a free floating 10, because that's essentially what Kevin De Bruyne does with City. Like, I'm just saying, like that's that. Hear me out, Rigo. What's Trent's worst attribute? Don't say his defending. That's a bad thing. But like, what is his, like, if you could boil down all of Trent's attributes into like the Football Manager, what's his weakest attribute?
Two.
What?
His PR and being born in Liverpool and playing for Liverpool.
His PR? Okay, no, okay, but like his playing attributes. So like, what is, like, as a player, what is his weakest ability? Drew and CT, you can throw into what do you think it is?
I would say recovery speed.
Oh, I think that's overblown because he actually called up to Ronaldo when he played right back. But okay, that's fine. Recovery speed, so he's not the quickest.
Because defending wise, it's not like he gets broken. He's always falling on the ground, etc. Yeah, in a set defensive situation, he can defend. I guess balls to the back post, but as we saw quite throughout this Euro tournament, the guy that starts over him, he got beat back post I don't know how many times. So
Drew, CT, what would you say Trent's worst ability is as a footballer?
CT?
I mean, I was going to say defending, but I would say, physicality. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. I could take physicality in some instances. I would say in very specific circumstances. Drew, what do you think?
Honestly, what I'd say is the reason he'd fail in midfield is because he doesn't have the time there at a top level with people collapsing on him. If he's better running with the ball. So like his tight, like when you think of Thiago in the midfield, how he can, like, people can be on him. He can get the quick pass out. He could shift and move by. Gravenberch can do that. Endo can hold up the ball well. Trent doesn't have the time on his clock of doing that in that position. And if we're starting a season, you don't put him there. and have him figure it out.
Okay, so if I can say this, I think that what everyone's saying is that he's not press resistant. He's not the best at winning headers, and he's not the most physical. There's a perfect place in this system where he could play where none of those attributes would weaken the team. It's the 10. Like, you don't need to be defensively switched on. You just need to know where you're pressing and where you need to be. And he can, if he has a free role or a free-ish role, he could drop into the right wing like a right back. Connor Bradley can invert like he did. He could swing to the left. He could swing to the right. I mean, this is essentially what Phil Foden and Kevin De Bruyne do for City. They could just Slot could just not copy exactly, but that's where you could put him, and you still get his duels, his one-on-ones. He's not bad. And you essentially create a situation where Trent is allowed more freedom to interpret where he's at, but in a position where he can do maximum damage to the opponent's team, but not be a defensive liability. What do you think of that proposal? Anyone can tell me I'm a dickhead. It's okay.
So I think most people in the chat
that you must have had to get home really must have just.
Go ahead, CT. What are you gonna say?
Like we've gone from Trent in the midfield double pivot, which kind of can get behind a little bit, to now Trent as a 10.
Is it the most crazy idea?
It's not crazy because he's a baller, but I think that's his strength. Like you could put him in so many positions, but if I'm ordering them all, it would be probably the third or fourth. I think double pivot. I think right back is definitely number 1 or 2. And yeah, like I was going to say in the chat, as most people are acknowledging, the fact that Carvalho didn't play in the 10, it looks like Slot's not going to be utilizing that. So, but look, I know people are going to look at how things start, but as the season evolves, as Slot's career evolves, maybe things don't look the same as they do to start the season,
But okay, so question: did Slot say he's not playing with 10s?
No, he played with 2 10s. He literally played with Harvey and Dom. Like, it's very much gonna be a 2 and a 1.
9 or a 10, like whatever label you want to give it. I think he plays with 10s. Like, who says he doesn't?
No, I think
they're just going off the signs because Carvalho didn't play in that position. He was told to play the wing.
He had him as a winger, definitely. But yeah, I think we are playing with 10s. I think the comments that Muse is putting there, and again, I want to know as far as the context. Like, he might not just see Fabio as a 10 in his system. He sees him as a winger in his system, being able to play on the line and
right mid, right wing. We've got a problem with Bradley at right back, Trent at right mid, right wing. It's kind of a 10. It's kind of not a 10. It's kind of on the right, but kind of look, we're compromising. This is how we make it.
And obviously, the positional flexibility that these guys will offer will lead to some crazy combinations, just because the play style and the triangles and the movement, they're just gonna go off script sometimes and just get creative out there. I think the system allows that for them, but as far as if I'm building a lineup, there's no way that I'm not starting Trent at right back, considering the midfield options that we have, and ideally the midfield acquisitions that we should be getting soon. One thing I want to kind of toss out to the group here. I know there's been a lot of clamoring as far as transfers, etc. Even though our sporting director himself said July is going to be quiet. Relax, guys, have fun, go to your barbecues. Watch some of these preseason matches. In August, we'll start making some moves once we evaluate it. I think the evaluation part is kind of twofold. It's not just Slot evaluating the players that he currently has at his disposal. Just by us having these preseason matches, we've allowed the world to see how Slot's going to operate and how we're going to play. And I think it's a beautiful brand of football. And I think a lot of highly skilled, quality players will be jumping at the chance, obviously, unless they're blown away by Man U money, because, again, they're not joining a project, they're joining the money. But I think a lot of high-quality players are going to be clamoring to join up just because it's beautiful ball that we're about to play. And it's a selling point. I think once you get this on film and you're able to kind of share these clips of what we're doing as far as training wise, tactical wise, I think it'll lead to moves come August as far as players. What do you guys think about that?
CT, what do you think about the transfer situation? Do you think that we're all set? Do you think the youngsters will step up? Like, and how do you personally feel? Do you want signings?
Yeah, like I'm at the stage where I feel like it would benefit the squad to bring in 1 or 2 guys, and 3 might be a little overkill. 3 would still be welcome for me, but you got to have a plan for some guys that are currently here, which is Fabio, Sepp. Those guys change a lot of things. Owen Beck, I mentioned in the chat, Bobby Clark staying. So yeah, like Rigo said, the midfield is stacked, and you need a plan for these guys. Otherwise, they will get disillusioned at some point. But the reason I'm okay with no signings right now is because Slot's taken his time. He's given every guy a new chance. And I think a lot of fans have used this analogy, which I think is perfect. But let's say you're a brand new manager taking over a job. You want to fully evaluate all your current staff before you recruit or put a job advert out for a new guy to take someone else's spot. That might be the quickest way to lose some players. And so I think they've utilized this time, and maybe they'll, continue to do that after Arsenal and Man U. But I do think a backup plan for Mo in terms of, his contract situation, his age, having a speedy winger would be nice to bring alongside him. And then I think obviously Endo is still very serviceable. I like Endo. I think it's still very much a gamble though, because it's his second season and there was some really good signs, but is he a 38 game, starter in the Prem is up for debate. So strengthening one more, I think, holding midfielder would be good, or, more of a physical profile. I'd not just say destroyer, because I think that's clearly not what Slot wants. He wants a ball playing sort of a midfielder as well. I think that would really benefit the squad. And if Sepp stays, I'm good with centre back. Like, I think I've started to now understand that, like, he's up to it. And I think Joe Gomez is a guy that might, like, he's 3rd, 4th string. He might want to see some time, or will want to see some time in game plan. And if Simi and Robbo and Owen Beck are there at left back, and right back is stacked with Trent and Bradley, where's Joey Gomez going to get any time?
He's our new 6. No,
Actually, not a bad shout.
no, not the most terrible one. Not like Trent at a 10. But
So just with my question, add on to that, do you keep Sepp? Or do you know that the fact that you got Kwanzaa and Joe as 3 and 4 centre backs, that you just say Sepp, take an offer for, let's say a bid comes in for 14 or 16?
They're not going to accept anything less than 25. Go ahead, Rigo.
This guy was one of the best defenders in the Bundesliga last year, and by all accounts, he passed the eye test, in my opinion. He was aggressive, won his duels, seemed strong, seemed fast. That he played at left center back, to me, was also kind of a great sign, in my opinion, because Kwanzaa typically has manned that role whenever Virgil wasn't starting last season. He'd had Evo stayed on the right, or Gomez would stay on the right, and it'd be Kwanzaa at left center back. So, I mean, and the other thing too, like, how awesome as far as a selling point to any type of player kind of signing it. Okay, it didn't immediately work out. We signed you after our Champions League season, one of our 2 only signings that how we super stricted the team, right? And even though it's been kind of rocky, you've had injuries here, been loaned out here and there, didn't kind of work with Pop. Now you get to come back, make a name for yourself, and now join up the squad. Like, or the kid furthest down in the academy, like again, it's just another selling point. This is why the Rios would be joining up with us. So to me, in my opinion, I'd love for him to stick and put in some quality performances. You never know injury-wise. And again, we want to keep some of our star players healthier and at that peak level for longer. Virgil doesn't need to start every single match. You know what I'm saying? And Ibu, again, hopefully with this new fitness directors and our new kind of training methodologies, he'll last the full season without going injured. But yeah, I don't think we're overloaded at center back if we keep Seth. I think kind of diminished the need for getting that lefty center back just because, again, he is quality, and kind of concentrate on beefing up in certain other areas. But we shall see.
Yeah, Rigo, I think, for me, I totally agree with you on Sep's position. I think it'll come down to what he wants, really, because, and I hope he stays. It reminds me of, when Marco Grujic went out on loan, when we had that injury crisis in midfield. It's like you missed your chance of getting into the team. He would have had a long stretch of games, and instead he moved on, and he's kind of getting games in the Portuguese league. But Sep, as you said, Van Dijk getting older, probably don't need to play him every single game. If he waits around another season, as CT was saying with Gomez, probably pushing down to fourth choice. Konate gets injured a lot. It really seems like Kwanzaa's the rock behind Virgil and Konate, and there's an opening for Sep to really take his spot. So, or take a spot in that center back duo. So I'd be excited and really show the caliber of the player if he sticks around. But Dan, where are you sitting on that?
Yeah, does anybody know? So between Konate and Sep, do you know how many games there are between them in terms of total appearances? Does anybody know the difference?
Repeat
Probably
that,
minimal.
So how many games has Konate played? The difference between the amount of games Konate has played and Sep has played in their career. Does anybody know the difference?
I'd say I'd probably venture to say Seth has more matches.
Actually, no. Good. It's 13. So Konate right now has 13 more senior appearances than Sep in their career. So
Sep had a season ender though, and that's what Sep having a season ender ankle is.
Yeah, and that's what Sep having a season ender and being 22. My point being is the fact that I think with center back, if no one goes, I think we're set. And the only player I could see us buying is someone like a Hoylson from Juventus that's 19. You can bring up into the system. They would be considered homegrown, and you're spending 30 mil, and so they're coming in as the fifth or sixth choice with the idea of them training. I don't see them buying anybody that plays left back and center back. That was something I thought they'd do last year, even with Ricardo Calafiori, but it seems like that's not where Slot wants to go. He wants more traditional left backs that are good on the ball, Beck, Robertson, Simicast. Even though Robertson, Simicast aren't the best, they're still they're not terrible. The problem with me is the fact that if it's not Wataru Endo as your one of your midfielders, then who on the market is going to be that ball player who can kind of do jack of all trades? Because it's not Manuel Ugarte, who I think is the better player than Endo. I don't know if he's 50 million pounds better. So it really comes down to who leaves. So that's where I think you can make the sidings, because you could say, well, we could side Kubo as a right winger because he's a good player. He's not going to score a lot of goals. I know you're not a big Kubo fan, but he gives you everything on paper statistically that you would like from a creative right winger from a slot team. But he doesn't score a lot of goals. You could side Johan Bakayoko. I think that's what everyone wants to sign. But again, he's 20. He needs to get game time. And if you're bringing him in as the sixth forward, how many games is realistically going to get? 15 maybe at most. And I mean, I think that, obviously us were yeah, no, that's a perfect idea. But then it comes down to, well, what are you doing with Diaz, Gakpo, Jota, Nunez, Salah, and anybody else? So for me, I've always said that they'll sign one or two players, senior players, to be for the first team, not because that they shouldn't sign more, but because of who's leaving and who's staying. If Costas had gone, I could see you can make a case for Aït-Nouri and keeping Beck around or slowing Beck out again. If Sep had gone, definitely sign up center back because you need a fifth one, because we've seen this last year with Kwanzaa that having a fifth one is important. For the midfield, it really comes down to again, who stays and who goes. We haven't really lost any big players. Compared to the past couple of years, if you think about Gini leaving, Dejan Lovren leaving, Mane, Roberto Firmino, Emre Can, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Naby Keita. I know we joke about them, but they were important players for the team, and they played a big role in us winning the title. So it's more about where are you going to fill the gaps. So back to, I know CT mentioned Carvalho. If Carvalho goes on loan or sold, which I think is very likely, and that makes me sad because I think Carvalho is a great player and has something in him. If he goes, you could maybe make an argument for signing a Danny Olmo or a Kubo or a Bakayoko or some tannish forward player, but it's not the most demanding. You could, if Trent is a right back, you have 2 right backs, 3 left backs, 5 center backs, 3 goalkeepers. Not really an effort there. If Kelleher is sold, Yaros has shown himself to be a decent number 2, so he could definitely make that step up. He's not Kelleher now, but he's 23 and has shown that he's a decent player. So you don't need to buy a backup goalkeeper, especially with Pitaluga and Harvey Davies coming up. So I've said this all, even going back to the beginning of June. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm being just quite honest. Like, I think Anthony Gordon being the most linked is the most interesting because that tells me that they're expecting either Diaz to go or like, Salah's not going to sign. So they need to get the new guy in now. And if it's Anthony Gordon, I mean, I think that's perfectly fine. But then it's, we're going to have 6 forwards. We're going to have the most stacked forward class of all time. And then it comes down to, you're kicking the can on the question of the midfield down the road because Indo is kind of the odd man out right now in terms of like the midfielders that can kind of do everything. And so in that case, it comes down to contracts. And if none of the contracts get extended, Verge will be gone. I think he'll probably resign. Trent, I expect to sign, and Salah's probably the one that's going to go on a free. So, what are you doing in that? You don't think he goes on a free, Rigo?
I would be super, super upset if he goes.
I don't think it's the worst thing if Salah goes on a free. Like we've had players go on frees and still sign. Like I know what you're saying because it's like we could have got 150 million for him last year, but Liverpool have still bought players and we've let players go.
I mean, if we get 50 from him 2 years down the line, like to me, Salah's still producing. So unless
I agree, he's still producing.
I would just extend them. I think the older he gets, you just decrease take home standard pay, I would say, but I see no reason why he shouldn't stick around. And if they let him go on a free, like what exactly have we learned, or what exactly has Hughes or behind him Edwards learned from their previous screw ups? It's like don't let for a team that need again. We harp on transfers not being made. And a big thing of that is getting money for players that no longer fit the project. And letting players run out that contract just spits in the face of that. It's kind of leaving yourself shorthanded in 2 respects. You're losing a player, so you need to fill that gap, and you have less money to go acquire some players. So if Salah doesn't extend, then I'm sorry. Then you don't let them run out the contract. I don't. Mane at least had the presence of mind to force a move a year early, so we can at least get something for him by him going to Bayern. I would expect. Honestly, I don't see Mohamed leaving at all on a free to go to a Saudi Arabia, PSG, and et cetera, and et cetera.
So going back to my original point, I just don't know who you sign is the problem because of so many things that have not happened in the market that I think they've been trying to do with like moving on players. And that's kind of just where they're at. It's not because I know people are going to say this is down to poor planning. I think it's so much down to poor planning as it's the fact that so much came to a head at once. Like Verge would have re-signed if Klopp had said, "Oh, I'm staying for 2 more years." I don't think half of these problems would be problems if the manager hadn't stayed over, but we'd still have structural problems behind the scenes. So if you have one summer where you don't sign a lot of players, but you get through January and then you make a signing in January, cut your cloth where you're at. But like right now, Liverpool are a very deep team, and we're really talking about signing like 5th and 6th and 7th players. There's very few players right now that would start at Ipswich that we would sign. Even Lenny Euro was not going to start at Ipswich. Sorry, Drew, go ahead.
That's why that price was ridiculous. You don't sign them. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like it's kind of the game has kind of changed or evolved to where the players are taking that in their hands of letting their contracts run down. I think it's coming across the board where players realize how much power they have by doing that. Like you can easily, like, how many players are like, as it gets closer, they're like, I'm not talking about my contract until the end of the season. It's like, how many times can you do that? Like you're not really thinking about renewing your You're not really thinking about renewing your player's contract until it gets to that like year 2 mark. unless it's a young player you're trying to bump them up on a pay thing. But it's once it gets to year 2 mark, they can just ride it out. I feel like a lot more players are doing that to assess their options, and
Well, that's
And
also,
the
especially
situation of the game.
but
Yeah,
that's
CT?
also a reflection. Oh yeah, go ahead, CT.
Yeah, just quickly say, especially with an aging star, that in all of sports, the aging star is the hardest to deal with in terms of contractual situation, because in their mind they believe they're still, and they're still performing at an elite level, but at what point? Because there's always a big drop off, and it's sudden. You know, for some you can still play at a very high level, but when you're on that sort of money, it's like, and then we know Edwards' policy. It could be really interesting. I could see Salah leaving, but on a free, I think Edwards wouldn't let that happen.
I mean, he's let it happen before. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. It's like there's a lot of myth making around Michael Edwards, I think, that creates this guy who's a data-driven nerd, who's who's like a genius and ultimately things well. But Michael Edwards is just a guy. Like he likes data, but he's not like a unique genius behind that. Like he didn't design anything. He's a good communicator.
It's not Professor X with Cerebro.
Yeah, he's very well likable, like Richard Hughes. He's not a bad looking fellow, and he has context. Like we think about like transfers in this in a Liverpool context because of like our structure from a very scientific point of view, that like data driven, falsifiable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's really just Richard Hughes going like calling up an agent, being like, oh, okay, who's here, who's this and that. And that's why I mean, like, if you've seen a lot of our links, they've been linked to like agents we know. You try to get try to get information on contracts and stuff. And so like that's why I've said like he's let people go on free before. Like that's not where Liverpool have made their money. It's selling your Mortons, your Clarks, your Andre Wisdoms, your Marco Gruiches for money, because that's where you make your biggest buck. Like selling Salah is not the cornerstone of Liverpool's transfer policy. It's selling Morton, Simicast, all the players that you can upgrade on, not the superstars. Like they very much have accepted the idea of like players come here and finish their career. Oh, nice. Players come here to finish their career, and then they'll run down the contract, and that's mostly because so much money has gone in COVID. Like COVID's evaporated so many markets that would buy these players. Players just run down their contracts. So it's like, well, I can just sign a big bumper contract because the club can't pay the transfer fee, but they'll pay the contract, and that's just a byproduct of COVID that's erased that market. Oh goodness.
Yeah. So
No way he's gonna run out his contract. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I know. Any final thoughts, guys?
Go ahead. CT. Go ahead.
CT. Yeah.
You had the least amount of talk time, I think, between Dan and myself. So please take the podium, sir.
We just love hearing you guys speak, and yeah, you hit on a lot of points. But yeah, Mo, man, it's tough because he's still performing at a really good level. So I know Paul's asked, would you guys give Mo a 3-year extension at the money he is on? Look, it's not my money. That's not the worry. I would give him an extension, 1 or 2 years, but I definitely need to bring in a signing to think about the future. Like think of a backup. I know some people have said in the chat that Lucho could be a right wing, but what do you guys think of that?
He did very well when Mo was over at AFCON, even though Mo was injured. I think Lucho did very well at right wing. I think he can man the position. He's drifted over there occasionally during matches, even with Colombia over at Copa America.
Is there anyone else outside of Jota or anyone else that's could play his right wing that we currently have, or who would be the next best option for you? Like Harvey, someone else?
Dom. I mean, if your right winger needs to be someone who's a robust, good on the ball, can create, can get past the man. I mean, it's Dom and Diaz. It's double D on the wing. Like we love a double D on the right. No, Rigo is enjoying that little pun there. I mean, those are the two ones I would say. Go ahead, CT.
I'll just quickly add. Remember game 2? Who did we play, and who scored 2 late goals from that position? And some people have brought up his name.
Connor.
Darwin.
Second game of the season at Newcastle, right?
Yeah, Darwin. It wasn't. I don't think it was
sorry.
second game.
I thought you were talking about the right wing. Darwin's no winger. He's not a winger.
I get what you're saying,
He's
Rigo,
from
because
goal.
I get what you're saying, Rigo, because he is better. Not Rigo, CT. I get what you're saying because he is better on that kind of inside right forward because it allows him to turn and shoot on his right foot, so it values that. And his weakest side is his left side. So I get that, but I think there's the difference between playing as a 9 and playing as an inside right forward than it is starting on the right wing and playing a right wing in a slot system.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but I mean, I guess look, when you're a goal scorer, you can score from any side. But yeah, he's got the speed. But I prefer Darwin on the left too. But fortunately, Cody, what are your thoughts on Cody, guys? I'm really excited to see what he looks like under slot. But obviously, Lucho, I think, is going to have a better year as well. So how do we solve that problem?
Go ahead, Rigo.
I think that this is what I kind of think. A lot of the guys that have kind of gotten flack as far as perhaps underperforming, especially their XG, their one-on-one chances. I think a lot of that is due to the kind of unsettling nature of the way the chances are created. We aren't consistently funneling passes into the box, creating easy opportunities just off passes right, and a lot of it for them was one-on-one, getting by a guy, and then trying to finish after exerting so much effort just to get that opportunity or that chance. I think with slot ball, a lot more calm on the ball. Like every single player interviewed has said how much more composed the build-up is and much more deliberate and structured. And I think that structure, when you have wild card players, in the ultimate respect of the word, wild card players who can turn and change a game on a dime just by their sheer brilliance. I think a lot more structured play leads them to be more successful. Again, just my opinion. I'm not no professional, just a fan. And I think I just want to say this. Santi Jimenez, did we know about this guy ever? No. I saw this guy at Copa for Mexico. He did not stand out in any single fashion or on the pitch. He looked just like another common player. Looked, super average. And we've seen Darwin, his physical attributes and his ability to create chances and be in spaces far outpace Santi Jimenez. And Santi Jimenez put in so many goals in the Eredivisie out of nowhere. I think that's going to lead to Darwin scoring a bunch of those for Liverpool. I think Lucho also will benefit from that as well. Just the runs and the creative passing that were on display with Lefties just has me super excited. Just because this offense can come from anywhere, you have to make runs in this offense. It's not a bunch of diagonal passes and switches of play. Even though I love them personally, from either Virgil to Salah or Trent over to Lucho or wherever the case might be. It's a lot more deliberate. I think that there's still room for that, obviously. You don't want to kind of handcuff your extreme talent on the player, but just give these guys time, I think. And like Dan said, 1 or 2 signings, but high quality that can contribute to this team right now are needed.
Yeah, and just to round this off real quick, then I got to hop off, and then I think Rigo's going to take the reins from here to wrap us up tonight. I think Gakpo, Cody, you're good, Rigo. Are we just going to call it here? Final word. All right, so final word, I guess, on the Gakpo situation is that I think Gakpo's best position is on the left wing. The question is rather, how do you want to use him? So if you're using him like a left winger in the way Diaz is, he's not effective. He's not going to give you width. He's not going to beat 3 man, put in a cross and get a goal. Like that's what Diaz has been really good at, being very direct and very good on the ball. He could be that Mane-ish where you're left wing, left forward more. And I actually think that's where Gakpo thrives at, is coming in off the left, starting on the left, coming inside, picking up the ball, either playing 1-2s or getting in behind at the end of things. He can knit things together very, very neatly. The problem with Gakpo is that he's too good at a bunch of things and not great at one thing. So with Doran, he has pace, ball striking, power, heading, like all those things. Like, and he's an intelligent player. I know people like to harp on about his intelligence, but Darwin's a very intelligent player. The problem with Darwin is more about like it's the emotional mental side. Yeah, keeping the consistency and also not letting it get to him. And that's just something that comes with coaching and also just figuring it out, because a lot of players weren't good finishers coming up through the ranks and then got better. Like Thierry Henry was not a proficient goal scorer before he evolved at Arsenal under Arsene Wenger. So I think Gakpo is going to be a player kind of similar to not Carvalho, but maybe someone like a Szoboszlai, where they can do a bunch of different things. So they may end up doing like 3 to 4 different roles before they settle in. And we may not get the best version of Gakpo, but if we don't get the best version of Gakpo and win European Cup finals and winning titles, who cares? Like, I'm sure Cody can suck it up. Like Oxlade-Chamberlain won a Champions League, a title, and all the cups, playing a multifaceted role. So I think Cody Gakpo may be in the situation where he's going to be playing a lot of roles. He may be a left winger, he may be a right winger, he might be a 10, maybe a 9, might be midfielder, like we saw last year as not as a 2, but as the 1. We could see Cody Gakpo do a bunch of things. And I think with Gakpo, I think the most important thing for Gakpo is just doing what the coach asked. And at the end of the day, I think we'll win things as a team. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day, not Cody Gakpo's stats or even Darwin Nunez's stats. At the end of the day, it's more about the team winning things together. Cool. I think that's it. We're all good, lads?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, the great stream, everyone. Thank you for hopping on with us. I know we did a little bit of we Shanghaied this ship, and we've done a good job tonight with Star Stripes, Enfield Knights, and the Wallaby as well. Everyone have a good night, good morning. You'll never walk alone, and up the Reds. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube and Twitter. Good night, folks. Good morning, and good afternoon.